Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Your Mark on the World show. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe, and we're excited to have a special guest from USC today. We have the founding director of the, let me look at this, the Brittingham Social Enterprise Lab. Oh, to have a memory like Adlai Wertman, who's here with us today. Adlai, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate being here.
We're excited to have you. You've done some amazing, interesting things. But first, let's start off by having you tell us tell us more about the program you lead, the Brittingham Social Enterprise Lab.
So we are a program within the Marhsall School of Business at USC, and our goal is to train students originally at the business school, but actually now from across the university, how to use business skills that we train them and business models to create sustainable organizations taking on the world's most pressing problems, social, environmental, and health. We also run undergraduate degrees and a master's program in social entrepreneurship.
Well, I'm excited about your focus on solving serious problems. I do see a lot of people in the social entrepreneurship space who are worrying about pretty marginal problems. And I always get excited when I hear people talk about actually solving deep-rooted, serious problems, because that's where the big opportunities lie, it seems to me. Are you seeing opportunities in that space of big problems?
You know, the reason I came here 8 years ago as a third career was because the discipline of business was missing and being the sort of sole capture by the business community and the for-profit community. So I think that now, in a belief that heterogeneous groups are always going to be more creative and make better decisions than homogeneous groups, if we just take the historic social workers, policy students, and others and add business to it, add just that skill set and the people with that mindset, we can start to take on these really dynamic, hard problems. You know, global warming, becomes overwhelming for people who are just scientists. But if we can add some business and look at how we can scale those solutions, look at how we can make those solutions sustainable, how they work for the private sector, we can start really taking on these big problems.
Well, right on. Now, you came at this to the school, that is, having just done something pretty remarkable. You're an old investment banker. I shouldn't say you're old. You're a former investment banker. But between investment banking and here, you launched a program in LA for the homeless. Tell us about that.
Sure. So first of all, I was an investment banker for 18 years. And in the world of investment banking, that makes you old. So you're right. I didn't start this. So when I left Wall Street, I went to a part of Los Angeles called Skid Row, looked around and saw an enormous number of homeless people. We have on this area called Skid Row at the time, there were 18,000 homeless people living in 40 square blocks. There's at least 50 to 80,000 homeless in LA. I looked at the problem, I researched the problem, it really got to my heart, and found out that there was a large group of these folks who were looking to get a job. They were looking to get back in the world. They were 35 to 45 years old. They had spent their careers and their lives at this point in jail, on the streets, in this sort of cycle of homelessness and poverty, addiction for some. And now they were at a point where they wanted to get back in the world. But as we know in the United States, if you don't have a job, you're on the streets or in jail. There is no safety net anymore. So there was an organization already existent called Chrysalis, which was doing nothing but focusing on how to help those homeless get jobs. There at the time about 2,500 clients a year coming into 3 offices. And the problem was that 60% of them just needed some soft skill training and support in how do I get and keep a job. But there was 40%, or at the time 1,000 clients, who were so desocialized and hardcore from having been on the streets or in jail for so long, their backgrounds were so bad, that nobody was going to give them a first job. And if they did, they'd probably punch out their boss Monday morning. So the question was, how do you help those folks as opposed to sentencing them to a life, or death in jail? And the answer is that if we could hire them ourselves, then we could give them that first shot, but also give them the skills of how to get up and go to work in the morning, how to deal with a community or a bad boss or a coworker. What's a coffee break? And at the end of that, 4 to 6 months of working for Chrysalis, they would then have a resume, a reference, and at least the social skills of working, and could then go back and get a job on their own, a better job than whatever we were giving them. All you needed was a business that would hire 1,000 unemployable people with no skills. And I think, Chrysalis, right around when I got involved, right before, tripped across this notion of street cleaning. And we built that working for property owners, mall parking lots, you name it, and built it so that it's now probably a $6 million business, helping about 1,000 clients a year with about a 90% success rate. So add that to a very high success rate from the original 1,500 or 60%, and you're looking at an organization that's taking some of the toughest to serve in the country, and at a scale of 2,500 to 4,000 a year, about a 90% success rate at getting them into the workforce.
It's just amazing. Tell me a little bit about the services. So the street cleaning. So tell us a little bit more about the tasks that the folks are doing.
Sure. So cities have abdicated everything from the curb to the front window of a store. So they have those big street sweepers and will sweep the middle of the streets, but they're not touching sidewalks, they're not touching curbsides, they're not touching graffiti. So literally our folks are going out with a broom and a garbage can, and trucks. I mean, at this point, 20 some odd trucks, street sweeping, driving, sidewalk sweeping machines, and literally going block by block, cleaning street after street. Also being great ambassadors to the community, giving people directions, all of those things. But it's now, 24/7 all over a very large swath of LA County, going into mall parking lots at night when nobody's there, and literally sweeping and filling garbage cans, pressure washing the streets.
Are you, in the program, are they able to employ the hardened homeless? And I'm thinking primarily of those that struggle with severe mental illness or addictions that have made them kind of dysfunctional. Are you able to help some of those folks?
Those folks will never be self-sufficient in the world. Those folks are being helped right now by a program called permanent supportive housing. So those are the folks that you see on the streets with the sort of flies buzzing around them. They're not medicated. They're, the addiction is typically self-medication. They are really, for them, it's about getting stabilized, getting them into some housing where they have access to services. For some, when they get their meds, when they get stabilized, sober, they'll be able to enter the job world and come in. But right now, it's really for the folks who their barriers to entry are lack of work experience, lack of understanding where somebody looks for a job or how to fill out a job application. These kind of issues are the barriers that people are getting helped with.
Fantastic. Well, it's an amazing work that you were doing there. How are you translating that experience to what you're doing at USC?
So, these entities and the business, and it was a business, though it had a purely social mission. The only reason Chrysalis was in the business was to help people get transitional jobs and get back to work. These businesses, these social enterprises, were popping up all around the world. They weren't just here. Everything from microfinance that we've heard of to these job training things to even charter schools, you could say. They all required business folks. I mean, when I was hiring, I had social workers working for me and policy people on the side that was helping everybody. But on the business side, I needed people who could do HR. I needed people who could do payables and receivables and operations. And we were running 300 people a day all around LA. But all I was seeing was resumes from social work school and policy school. And those were great. I needed them, but I needed somebody else with a different skill set to run operations, to manage a fleet of trucks. And everybody was running into these problems. So I said, look, I think the best thing I can do to leverage my unique skill set at the time and experience is to go to a major university and create within a business school this idea of, well, can we grab up business students? And originally it was just MBAs, then undergrads, and now from across the university, and give them the skill sets, the business skills from marketing to finance to management, not focused on nonprofit management, but focused just the same as running any other business, except this business is going to have a social mission.
I think that's a brilliant approach, and you really make a strong case for the program. Adlai, I wonder if I could just explore a couple of personal topics with you. You know,
yes.
you clearly are a role model to the students there, certainly a role model to the folks at Chrysalis, and to countless others, I'm sure. Who do you look up to as a role model?
You know, when I was thinking about what would come after Chrysalis, you know, how do I leverage up and solve this problem? I was speaking at an event at Harvard, and the person who spoke after me was an amazing person named Warren Bennis. And Warren was a guru of leadership, had written 35 leadership books, and one that has often been listed as the best leadership book ever written, called On Becoming a Leader, that he originally wrote in 1984. I had read his book a dozen times since 1984, and he called me the next morning and said, I love what you had to say. I love what you're doing. Let's have breakfast when we're back in LA next week. And Warren, who has mentored presidents of the United States, multiple generals, CEOs, Schultz from Starbucks, he volunteered, and the two of us had breakfast every 3 weeks for the next year and a half to 2 years. And that notion of paying it forward, that notion of how do I mentor other people, how do I give my life experiences to other people, is part of, you know, and a great part of what made me come to a university. He was a professor here, and come to a university and say, let's leverage this up, let's teach this, and let's, and every year I pick two leading social entrepreneurs, and I voluntarily have breakfast with them once a week and mentor them through some sort of transition that they're going through. So I sort of pay that forward.
Well, I think that's a brilliant model, a great example, and I thank you for sharing that. You know, you and I have a little in common. We both spent some time as investment bankers. I don't, even having been one myself, even knowing you were one, I don't think of investment bankers as being by nature and focus the most kind, generous, service-oriented group of people in the world. What caused you, what is the fundamental underlying character that brings you to this desire to be in the business of serving other people, solving big problems, instead of being back on Wall Street and making a fortune?
So I never was able to take credit for anything that I had achieved on Wall Street. You know, I was born with a very freakish set of circumstances that made things pretty easy for me. I was born in 1959. I was born white. I was born male. I was born in America. I was born with high IQ. I was born with the ability to speak. I was born with a set of looks that didn't make people throw up when they had lunch with me. I was born with parents who valued education and made it a priority. My dad worked 3 jobs so that we could go to good schools. And none of that were anything that I earned. All I ever had to do was stir in some hard work, and I was able to achieve what I wanted to achieve. And to me, I had no right, whether this was, I don't want to use, whether it was God-given, whether it was whatever it is, I had no right to use that just to maximize personal income. It seemed to me that that set of coincidences I should be able to use to make other people's lives better. It never felt right. I think a lot of the people that I meet up with in business and on Wall Street who are still there, which is almost all of them, they believe they've earned everything they've gotten. They really do. I don't believe I've earned everything I've gotten. I think I've worked hard, but I think, I certainly, I'm not going to remember his name. Oh, Cory Booker, who was mayor of Newark and is now a senator. He had a great line that he said at a Stanford graduation several years back. He said, "Don't go patting yourself on your back so much for your home runs when you were born on third base." So I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm trying to do the hard work.
Well, that's a humbling and inspiring response. Thank you. I appreciate that, Adlai. Now, finally, I want to ask you what you do consistently, perhaps every day, some habit, some tip, some trick that you can share with us to help us have more success at having impact, at doing good.
I follow very closely Stephen Covey's First Things First, the first of his 7 habits of highly effective people, which divides how you spend your time between urgent and important. And important being those things that move you towards your goals, and urgent being those things that have to get done. It's a 2x2, which we know every MBA in the world loves 2x2 charts. But essentially what it does is it says that other people's priorities, including emails and phone calls, masquerade, they're urgent and they masquerade as important. Urgent masquerades as important. So for me, what keeps me going is I spend every year spending some time developing goals for what I want to do personally, but really through work. And I keep those up and I try to focus every day on not getting caught running around on the urgent, but trying to focus as much time as I can on what's important.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. It's been a long time since someone shared with us something so succinct and actionable, and I appreciate you doing that. Adlai, it's been a joy to have you, to learn about the great program you're running, about Chrysalis. Oh my gosh, I forever will desire to count you as a friend and hope that you'll be in touch in the future. But before you go, please tell us all how we can learn more about your program, how we can be in touch with you, connect with you, learn more.
Sure. So first of all, I have to say we're running, as of this year, the second year, the only master's degree, Master's of Science in Social Entrepreneurship in the country, out of a business school. So it's really a great program and recommended highly. People can hit me up at Adlai Wertman or look us up at marshall.usc.edu/BSEL for the Brittingham Social Enterprise Lab.
Fantastic. Well, again, Adlai, thank you very much for joining us. We wish you every success in the great work you're doing there at USC.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
All righty. Let's do some good.